Welcome, Tony Castillo.
Hey, Rudy.
How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming in. We had your dad in, and now we have you. So you're a junior, right?
I am a junior, but my dad hates it when anyone calls me junior, so I'll just go by Tony for this.
Okay. Wow, he doesn't like junior.
He doesn't at all. I don't know why, but
That's strange.
It is.
But does he like to be called Tony?
He goes by Tony, Tonio, Antonio, but never junior for some reason. He never liked it for me, and I don't even have a middle name too. It's actually pretty funny because on my license it says just Antonio Castillo, and once I turned 21 and I was at a bar and trying to buy a drink, I gave them my ID, and they looked back at me and they said, "Nice try." And I said, "What? What do you mean nice
you
try?"
don't have a middle name.
No middle name. Good try though, and they rejected me.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
So do you get a lot of mail mixed up with you and your dad because
yeah, well, he does have a middle name, but I don't think I should share that one because he's a little embarrassing. But I'm going to share it anyways. His middle name is Benito.
Okay.
Which is great, but growing up, he just didn't like being called Benito.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a middle name, so most people don't call you by your middle name.
Yeah. Yeah, so no junior, just Tony Castillo.
Okay, because I'm a junior too. Okay. My dad is, Rudy Rodolfo Senior, and I'm junior. And yeah, he told me when my son was born, years later after my son was born, he was like, I kind of wanted him to be the third.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, Dad, why didn't you tell me?
Right.
Has your dad ever said anything like that to you about if you have a son?
Yeah, I think it's been hinted at and kind of encouraged. So we'll see. I mean, Lord willing, my future wife would be okay with it, but who knows? But it'll be really cool to have the Antonio the Third.
I know, sure. Yeah. My son was like, "Why didn't you name me the third?" I was like, "I don't. Well, we have a lot of relatives with the name Rodolfo, so we're like, okay, well, let's skip that for now." But anyway, this is about you.
Yes.
So you've been here at St. Faustina since the beginning.
I have ever since we were meeting at Hubenack. Is that how you?
Hubenack, yeah.
Hubenack, yeah. I mean, I would come back home from college and my parents were telling me, there's a new church that's starting and they're meeting at an elementary school. And I said, what? I mean, that sounds kind of strange, right? You mean they're having mass there? But once you were there, I mean, it was so special. I almost a part of me wished that one year we could just go back and celebrate mass just one more time. I think it would be incredible. I think the community would go crazy if we ever got to experience that ever again. Don't know if it would ever happen, but it would be super cool because
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I just have so many vivid memories of walking down that hallway and then going into the cafeteria, the chair set up and mass being celebrated on the stage. Just super, super special and unique. Something that I had never seen before. I didn't know that was allowed to celebrate mass anywhere outside of the church. I really didn't know that at the time. So, incredibly special to be able to be a part of St. Faustina since the very beginning.
I actually worked there at that school for 1 year.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'd walk into the gym and that's where that used to be. That's where this used to be. Yeah.
That's incredible.
It was afterwards though. I worked there for a year. Yeah. I taught special ed for a year there. But I know what you mean about, that was my first experience too. I've heard about masses being done in different places like firehouses and stuff like that while they're trying to get the budget together to make a building. But yeah, this was my first experience of actually being part of a parish. Now, I understand you were born in Mexico, right?
I was born in Mexico, in Monterrey, Mexico. I was born there in 1993. And then in first grade, I moved here to Katy, Texas. And so most of my life has been here in the States, but would try and go back to Mexico as much as we could. Most of my family's over there. And so any summer or Christmas that we could go back, we were there. And it was funny growing up, I missed it so much that I was trying to devise a plan with my friends at school about, which is not encouraged, but to meet at midnight to start building a plane, because I would tell them Mexico's awesome. Let's just go and meet at midnight. We're going to start building a plane. We're going to fly over there. I'm going to show you guys. It's the best thing ever.
That's hilarious. How old were you?
I was probably, how old are you when you're in second grade? Something like that. But that's what was going through my mind in second grade. I just wanted to go home. I didn't really speak the language too well. So I was in ESL classes and was very self-conscious about reading and speaking. But slowly, I started to learn the language pretty well. to the point where I almost now have more of an accent in Spanish, which is pretty funny.
Oh, that is.
Yeah, because now I just, with my dad, everything was in English because I needed to start practicing. With
Yes.
my mom, it was always in Spanish. But
Okay.
yeah, pretty funny how that worked.
So do you have memories of when you were 1 year old there, or is it mainly your memories just, vacations?
No, I think I have very vivid memories of growing up there because I didn't move until I was in first grade, so kindergarten.
First grade, yes. I'm thinking 1 year old.
Yeah,
no,
no,
first grade, yeah.
Yeah, so in kindergarten and before that, I have very many vivid memories of doing like taekwondo, swimming, and like all the friends that I used to have.
So you must have been like 5 or 6 years old around that time?
Yeah, something like that. But I definitely remember also the trips going back. So it's a very special place to me. And now it's a little difficult to go because it's a different situation now, a little bit more dangerous. But anytime I can go, I'm definitely there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Mexican families, just like Filipino families, you're very close knit, right?
Oh,
you know a lot of your first cousins, second cousins too, right?
Yes.
Very close knit. So you're very close with your family there, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm very thankful for that. I mean, we might not talk every day, but when we see each other, it's like we saw each other like yesterday. I'm very thankful for that. How it's the Mexican culture, just like the Filipino culture, it's just very family oriented.
Yeah.
And it's huge, and I feel like I'm meeting a second cousin every time I go to Mexico. It's like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, your first cousins are like your siblings.
Exactly.
Right? And then your second cousins are like your first cousins.
Yes. Yes, and some of them did move here to the States, and so maybe I was a little closer to them because they're in the closer vicinity and we could see each other more often. But I still have a lot of cousins and family members in Mexico that when I get to go and see them, it's really the best.
So when you came here, you said you had some issues with, English and all of that. Did you like really struggle in school because of that?
I think I didn't necessarily struggle in school. I think I was it built like a way that I was becoming a little bit more self-conscious. But for the most part, I did well in school. I was very blessed to have very supportive parents and also having me involved in a lot of sports, and so it was always like a good balance of activities. And so thankfully I didn't struggle too much in school. If anything, it was just the language barrier, but then after a while it became fine. And it was actually kind of like St. Faustina. My elementary school was called Williams Elementary, and we were the first class of first graders to go into that elementary.
Oh, wow.
So that was really cool.
Was that here in Houston?
Here in Houston. Yeah, here in Katy and Cinco Ranch area.
Okay.
And so we were the first class. And so I got to be there. And a lot of the kids had gone to kindergarten somewhere else. And so some of the people knew each other. And there was a group of guys that kind of like took me in per se. And it's actually super special. I mean, we still talk till this day. We're still really close, have like a group chat that we're always talking. And so super, super thankful for that. And I just have a lot of great like memories from Williams, to the point where when we graduated, or where we were going to graduate high school, they brought us back to Williams, and we got to like get interviewed and take like pictures back to where we were. And so yeah, Williams Elementary was a great place. Honestly, just moving here, at the beginning I really wanted to move back because it was my normal and that was home. But once I was here, man, it's just what a country we live in, honestly.
I mean, so you stayed in that same school system, just going through the same track. You didn't move or anything, right?
Yeah. So I went to Williams Elementary, then I went to Beck Junior High, and then I went to Cinco Ranch High School. So that was my trajectory, and then I went to Texas A&M. So, and throughout that process, getting to be involved in sports, taekwondo, swimming, my favorite thing to do was always to play football, and so I played football for a long time.
What position?
I played cornerback. Yeah.
Okay.
I played linebacker at first, but then I just never grew, and so it stuck me out with cornerback because I was a little smaller. But I love to play defense, and yeah, it was my favorite sport by far. And then I also, in sixth grade, started playing the alto saxophone. So that was what gave me a good foundation for music in general. So I played from 6th to 12th grade.
So you were in band?
I was in band. So I played football and was in band. So there was times where I even got to march in special circumstances in my football pads.
Oh, that's cool.
With my instrument. Yeah.
That's
super,
really
super
cool.
Yeah.
So you sing for the 4:30 Mass here at St. Faustina. I mean, you're great voice. You play the guitar well, but you weren't in the choir in high school?
No, for some reason, it's funny, in 5th grade, I was in choir. We got to go to SeaWorld, and it was a great time. But when they were selecting soloists for the choir, it seemed like everyone got a solo and I didn't, and I took it as, you can't sing.
Oh.
And so after that, I'm just going to stick to singing in the shower and in the car, so that's what I really did. I never really sang very much. Growing up, I always had like a huge attraction to music in general. There's pictures of me growing up pretending to sing with like a straw or like playing the air guitar. But yeah, it was, I was a late bloomer when it came to singing. I didn't really get comfortable until probably college. In high school, near the end, I picked up the guitar, but it was very much in my room, just kind of playing and strumming. But I'd from time to time go downstairs to my parents' room and tell them, what do you think of this? How does this sound? But for the most part, I just never felt comfortable singing.
Do you regret quitting choir? Or do you think, no, this is just my path?
I'm glad, because then maybe I wouldn't gotten into band, and playing the alto saxophone was just so fruitful for me. Like it gave me such a great foundation. It might even be to a fault, because sometimes when I sing, I go all over the place and I don't kind of stick to what I'm supposed to be singing, because that saxophone is very much of like a adornment, or just like sprinkles on top overall. But yeah, I think I'm very thankful that I got to have a lot of focus on the saxophone from 6th to 12th grade, and the Lord uses all things. And I mean, would it have been cool to use it a little bit more and develop at an earlier age? Absolutely, but I'm still thankful.
One of the reasons why I'm asking you this is because during your dad's interview, he talked about how you guys used to go to Mass at Epiphany, where we were, and I struggled in the choir, being one of the few men, and your dad was watching it. I'm like, if you sing well too, you could have joined us as well, because we did have some high schoolers at the time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I love going to Epiphany, honestly, but for some reason, we were just a little younger in our walk overall as a family, I would say. And so there wasn't too much of a draw to go and sing at the time, but that would have been super cool.
Your dad teases me. He's like, yeah, I watched you struggle there in the choir.
That sounds like my dad for sure. He probably enjoyed it very much.
So you didn't have any desire yet at that point?
No, not at all. I was just very shy when it came to all of that. Always cared too much about what people would say or think. And especially with singing, for some reason, I just never felt comfortable doing it.
So you talked about your faith walk as a family. What was it like growing up for you?
Yeah. I would say we were always, actually not even, maybe not always consistent, but it seemed like culturally we were a part of the church. And so there was a commitment to go, because that's what we were used to. My grandparents were devout Catholics, and so my parents knew that there was a lot of truth behind what we were doing, but it was just a little different. It seemed as though we were going because it was a commitment that we could not fall back on, but maybe there wasn't too much of an emphasis as to why, and maybe there was, and I just wasn't paying attention. That could easily be it, right?
You were growing up.
I was growing up, and so I think as a family, my dad did a great job to get us to Mass, especially at Epiphany. I think the issue was that I was a little distracted at the time. Maybe there was a cute girl in the pews that I was looking at, and rather than paying attention to what's going on during the consecration, right? And it took me years to try to finally understand what's going on at that Mass. And so just very different. I think that there was a lot of things we needed to do, but I had gotten very used to playing the part of pretending to be present and going through the motions, but not actually being present and listening well.
I saw that a lot in the Philippines as well, because it's part of the culture. So this is what you're supposed to do. So everybody knows the motions. They know all the prayers and all of that. Yeah. But sometimes, since it's part of that culture, there's less of a, I don't know if it's less of a desire, or you don't go deeper. A lot of people don't go deeper because you think that, okay, these are the things you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But then it's just the routine, I guess.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
No, it does. I mean, our faith is just so rich with so much, and it's like so many ways to approach our faith, and where it all leads back to Jesus. But if it's not necessarily explained well, then it's hard to really see the value in it. And I think that was my experience, is that I saw that we were doing many things, but I felt that it was almost forced, and I couldn't see as to why I'm doing it. So I was missing that piece as to why. But yeah, nonetheless, I mean, we were here. And so a lot of different people growing up didn't have that opportunity to be here. So at least it laid a really great foundation for me to then be able to build upon it on my own way, right? I think growing up, I got into a habit of really trying to blame others for my situation, and many times even my parents. And so when it comes to my faith and my walk, it took a lot of maturing to get to a point where I saw, you need to do the work and you need to do the search yourself. And now I think because of that, it means that much more to me, because maybe if it was, spelled out very plainly for me, it wouldn't have the value that it has today. For me.
During your high school years, or maybe even your college years, did you have a certain point where you almost walked away from the faith? Because, growing up here in the United States, there are a lot of things that can pull you away from it.
Right. I think it was definitely going into college. In high school, I think relationships mean the world to you at the time. My parents, I think, met in junior high, and so I had this image of trying to recreate that. And when it didn't work out at the time, it really hit me. And so going into college, I had recently broken up with someone, and so once that happened, I really started to move away from the commitment of going to church, because in high school, I mean, we were going as a family, and even though I was encouraged in college, hey, have you gone to mass? I'm sure there was many times where I would lie, or many times that I did go, but, just completely numb and just present because I had to be there, but not
going through the motions.
Mm-hmm. And I had just gotten so good at doing that. And so I would say I didn't know how to suffer well. And once that started happening, I started to look to the world, because now, as you get older, you can be exposed to different kind of pleasures. And as soon as that started to open up, especially in college, I found a lot of different distractions to ease my pain, let's say.
So you said, like, the lot of distractions and stuff like that. How old were you when the smartphone started coming out? And because, nowadays.
Yeah, now I feel like I would have been a lot worse off if I would have been exposed in that way that easily. From a young age, let's say junior high. I think the problem is that even at a young age, I'd still work to try and find these different ways. And in particular, something that I struggled with was pornography and things of lust. And so even when I was younger, I can't remember exactly the age, but probably even since junior high, for some reason, maybe just casual conversations with my friends at school about, pornography in general, and just being led astray, unfortunately, since a young age. So I can't imagine having it be just a click away
on the phone
at that age in particular.
And there's always that one kid who brings it to school in his backpack.
Yes.
And he shows it to everyone in the restroom.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I can't imagine how much worse off I would be. But as I was starting to go through high school and in college, that definitely started to become more prevalent, especially because I felt that I wasn't being necessarily validated in relationships. And I think all hearts are always seeking intimacy. But I wasn't realizing that the only intimacy that I needed was with the Lord. And I at the time just was completely oblivious to it. And so I would seek very short-term gratification to just make me feel better in general. So in college, that definitely started to get worse when it comes to lust overall. But I think I would always have certain boundaries, which is another reason why I was numb and going through the motions when I was at church. But there were certain just fundamental things in my heart that I feel like I can't do. And so I was like, okay, at least I'm not doing this, so it's okay. And so I think the devil since then would lie to me that, well, at least you're not doing X, Y, Z, right?
Yes, you're comparing yourself to other people who are worse.
Exactly. And so, and I think that's how the enemy starts. You know, like I always think about my journey as if the devil would have given me a very cute puppy and just tell me, just feed it from time to time, but it'll be okay. You can control it, right? But little did I know that little puppy was going to turn into like a wolf one day that was just ready to consume me, right? And so in college, I also had moments where like I was starting to go back and know that I was running to the world, seeking comfort, but it just wasn't enough. And I felt like I was always needing more, right? I was definitely going more into partying and drinking alcohol. Marijuana use was starting to be prevalent as well. Thankfully, I didn't go much farther than marijuana, but that was definitely something that was there and present.
Did they have the vaping marijuana at that point? Not yet.
No, yeah. So the Lord was very gentle with me with not giving me too much at first. I think it was a very slow transition on those kinds of things. It was, if I was at a certain place and it was there, then I would do it socially, let's say.
Because everyone else is doing it.
Because everyone else is doing it. And at the same time, you know, it is a good distraction from what's going on around me. So why not? You know, when I don't necessarily have a real reason as to why I'm going to Mass and like, what does it mean to actually have a relationship with Jesus at that time? I had heard about it and I had seen it, and I had been to retreats too where I had felt something, but I didn't know what that meant, and it was just fleeting and it would go away. But yeah, it was, in college was an interesting time because there was moments where I would know that I needed to go back and at least look a little deeper as to what's going on here at Mass. And so there was a period when I started to go to adoration and go to Mass, but it was the mentality to receive rather than to give glory, right? So I think I still had a misconception of why am I coming here, right? And it was almost, again, like in a way, what's another Band-Aid I can put on this wound that I have?
Do you feel like you were living a double life in some ways?
Oh, absolutely. In college, not so much, because maybe I was surrounded by this lifestyle. And like I said, I think when I looked at people around me who were doing much worse things than me, I was like, I think I'm doing okay. And I'm generally like a good person and I'm nice to people. And that's what people told me, right? And so I started believing that, well, I think I'm doing enough. But, you know, once I started to graduate and move back here, I wanted to go to law school, and I started to study to go to law school. My family situation started to get a little bit harder financially, to the point where I needed to get a job to start helping out. And so I did. But as I'm doing that, I'm starting to get the opportunity to serve and sing at Mass. And in college, I barely sang. I had an opportunity to enter a funny competition and where I had to sing, and I did well, and I got the opportunity to sing the national anthem at the Texas A&M LSU playoff game. And so I went from not singing in front of people to singing in like essentially somewhat of like a big crowd. And so from there on, like I started to feel more comfortable at St. Faustina. I'd come and sing with the choir. I'd get a solo, and then someone would come and ask me, like, do you sing like yourself at Mass? And like it started to slowly transition into going to, let's say, the Holy Name Retreat Center where they have retreats going on, and I got to sing. And then slowly even to where the 4:30 Mass was needing someone to lead, and I had no experience whatsoever. I was very shy when it came to singing, but the Lord put me in that place, and I started to do that. But when it comes to living a double life, the fact that I was able to have these opportunities and doing other things was something that I couldn't even see at the time, which is what's the scariest part, that I was living in such a season of spiritual laziness because as soon as I got out of college, my parents' financial situation did create a lot of pressure of what's going to happen to my family, essentially.
Because you're the oldest.
Because I am,
and then you have, your brothers in college, and your sister's still in high school at the time, right?
Yeah. And so it was tough because we lost the home that we grew up in, and cars as well. And in reality, maybe the situation wasn't incredibly terrible, but then during that time, I could see that my father's health was deteriorating as well. And so there was just multiple pressures coming in from different angles, but I did have the opportunity to be singing here. But for some reason, I had glimpses of what could be the faith that we have, but I wasn't going deep enough. And so then once all these problems started coming, I fell back into the world, started now picking up more of the marijuana use, and this was not just socially, like now I was doing it individually. I had also continued to struggle with lust, but when it came to that, I was like, well, I still have like my limits, so it's okay. Like I have this under control. And then I started to date someone, and then I guess we live in a day and age where living with someone is more convenient. You save money. You're always spending time with them. So why not, right?
You rationalize it in your head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and this is someone that I considered my best friend, and I cared very much about. And so, and potentially could be marrying this person. And that's what I was telling myself, because at that moment, that's exactly what I was feeling. And so we started to live together. My roommate's girlfriend also was living with him. And so that was very normal. It seemed like if we weren't to be living together, then something might have been off. And it was almost like a glimpse of like what the marriage could be like. And so I started to do that. And then now all these problems continue to arise, and I feel more weight on my shoulders. And so I'm looking for antidotes, right? And especially when it came to lust, now these boundaries that I had no longer existed. And now these actions became more of addictions all throughout. These are things that with marijuana use and from a lust perspective were going on a daily basis. That at the time, unfortunately, was my faith, was my religion. But at the same time, living that double life and essentially putting on a mask when I came here to serve at St. Faustina, sing, maybe at the moment feel something, but then go back to the life that I was living. I was able to get a great job and got us financially sound to where I could be paying for my own apartment and supporting my family. And so it was, it was a very turbulent time to where I felt like I needed to run everywhere else but the Lord, but yet I was here every single Sunday. And I hid very well. No one really knew. I mean, people might see me singing there every single Sunday, especially during that time, and they might think, wow, like he comes from a perfect family and nothing's broken and it's amazing, right? And like that was just not the reality. The reality was that there was many nights where Saturday night I'd stay up very late, partying, and then I'd still not be feeling well, and then coming and singing because, well, it's at masses until 4:30, so I can probably recover, right? And so I was just very much of a walking corpse.
Wow.
Because I'm still receiving communion at the time. I'm not going to confession, and I'm serving here, and just completely and utterly lost, and I couldn't see it at the time.
Did anyone tell you that? Like, did you have any friends or family that say, hey, we're noticing you're starting to go off the deep end here?
Right.
Did anyone ever step in and say anything like that?
Unfortunately, I didn't have
Or you hid it so well?
A combination of both, I would say. I think the community that I had at the time around me didn't think I was doing anything wrong. If anything, it was very normal. I think my parents were definitely encouraging me against it, but at the same time saw that I was an adult and also, supporting myself and had a good job and making good choices. And to me, when I was here, like in my mind, I would also tell myself, well, I'm serving every Sunday. At least I can check off that box, or like, me and God are good. I'm here every Sunday, so it's okay. But it was really mainly just my parents. But especially when my dad started to get sicker, and he unfortunately had to go through a very traumatic surgery, I had moments there where I had to pray and look at the reality to when, like, now I have to ask the Lord something super important, that I haven't been a good son, and how can I ask something of him when I've just been so fake and not dedicating my life to him. When there was always there was not always, but there was moments where I think about it, but then I was just so lost that I used to feel guilt about not being real and genuine about my faith, but then I had so many distractions and so much noise around me that I didn't even know what I was doing. So the support of, hey, let's reel it back in, really came from my parents, and I'm very thankful for that. I mean, they got to the point where they didn't really know. And the big thing was just knowing that I was, they knew that I wasn't doing the right things, and so they would write me letters even just to try and find a way to get to my heart. But my heart had just been so hardened that I could not let anything in at the time.
And it's a difficult line to toe because you are an adult at that point, and they don't want to push you away either.
Right. Yeah. So it was a tough time, but things continued to just get out of control, because the things that at first I thought were not that bad had become addictions, and it was very clear to me that I had issues, and like I was not acting in a healthy way. Like I lived a very toxic lifestyle. And it wasn't until Lent, I believe it was of 2020, right before the craziness of 2020 occurred, where I woke up one morning and I just heard, through my own words, I said, "Mary, I consecrate myself to you." And I didn't know what that even meant. I don't know why those words were put in my mouth. Like, I really don't know why.
So you just said that?
I woke up and I said that.
Wow.
And I didn't really know what that meant. And so like I Googled it, and maybe I'd heard it in passing, being at mass and being somewhat involved. Like I had everything on mute, but maybe there were certain words that like were sticking, but I never really like looked too deep into it, let's say. And so from there, it just got put on my heart that I'm obviously looking for more things to put on these wounds that I have, where I'm looking for intimacy and acceptance and feeling that I'm imperfect. And so like I'm putting all of these different things around me that will just never fulfill my heart. And I decided that, okay, let's take a step back from all of these lustful actions. And as soon as I started doing that, it wasn't easy, but I started to really sober up and started to like see what was going on around me. And it was beautiful how I was able to start waking up every morning and just saying, "Thank you, Jesus." And now my obsession was really to like getting to know him. And it wasn't easy because the enemy had gone through years of small actions to create an avalanche to just completely drown me and have me feel like I was immobilized. And so I knew that it was going to take a while to really chip away at all of this, but knowing that I just needed to show up, and that every day wasn't going to be the best, but I just needed to show up. And so I started to do that. And, my girlfriend and I at the time had now lived together for 2.5 years. And so now I'm getting prompted in my heart to ask her to not live together anymore, but to see if we can try and make it work. And then as we started to do that, things didn't work out. And so that period was definitely very difficult for me, because this is someone who was my best friend. I had a great relationship.
What do you mean by make things work?
Make things work, meaning that whenever we started dating and decided that we were going to move in together, I had this hope in my heart and did really believe it, that this was going to be my wife. And so I thought that by us committing to the Lord and what He wants for our lives, and just starting afresh and having Him be at the inception of the relationship was going to be fruitful for us. And so that was what make things work could be, is that just submit to Him and His will. And so it was tough seeing eye to eye on some of those issues. And so we ended up breaking up. And so that was a very tough time, because again, I have had a lot of love and still do for her and her family, and I still pray for them until this day. So it was definitely hard, but on the other side of taking the risk of not being comfortable, I found so much peace, and it wasn't easy. I mean, when that started, it was in 2020. And so it wasn't easy for anyone, right?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of isolation, and it was just different times back then. It seems so long ago, but it really
it wasn't. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And so 2020 was just trying to get to a place to where I could be open to see what the Lord is trying to do with my life. And there was a lot of ups and downs that year, a lot of consolation to where I was on fire, like, man, I'm doing the right thing. And then desolation where I feel like I was lost and like, what am I actually doing? But for the most part, it felt like it was an upward trajectory, roller coaster ride where I had little dips here and there, but I felt like I was on the up and up. And if it really came to a point where I felt like I was ready to take a next step, and that really came through going through Exodus 90. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Exodus 90. Have you?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so it's a 90-day Lent on steroids, let's say, to where you really die to self and move away from the world. That you start to make sure that you have a daily holy hour. I was also in a group of guys. Actually, Gabriel Castillo was a part of this group. You've interviewed.
Yes.
And you do different asceticisms, like cold showers every single day, no video games, no sports, no TV, no social media, no sweets. That one really hurt.
Ooh.
Yeah. Love my ice cream, so that was rough. Working out every single day. But more importantly, like having that daily hour to pray and be in silence. And also at the time, praying the rosary. I'm trying to pray the rosary, the full rosary with all four mysteries. And throughout 2020, as I was still trying to find my way and balance and try and get out of the boat per se and start to walk on the water and trusting in the Lord, the rosary was really what brought me back and was the biggest part of my reversion. Consistency in the rosary and meditating upon those mysteries was incredibly fruitful. And I know it was through Mary that I was able to start to slowly heal. So during those 90 days, you really shut out the world and start to focus on Him. And so now I have a lot more free time if I'm not watching sports or on social media, just mindlessly scrolling away.
Yeah.
Once I started to put all that away, then I was actually able to be given a fresh set of eyes, let's say, to where now when I see Father Dad or Father Dave Michael like consecrating the host, and I'm right next to the altar and I'm seeing it. Now I'm in awe that I can't believe that I'm able to be here in this remembrance and this celebration, and that now I'm able to start to go to confession and to receive the Lord's mercy, to actually start understanding what's going on here, where before I didn't.
You're not just going through the motions anymore.
Not just going through the motions. Yeah. Now I am not just only receiving, but I am lifting up my praise genuinely. I think even in the way that I would sing, the Lord was so, gracious with me to give me a voice. But it wasn't until really like these past 2 years or so to where like I was actually singing to Him, and I wasn't just singing, that everything has really changed. And now I'm incredibly grateful for it. Exodus 90, I really do think was what was the reset button, and just really cleansed my heart. And then last year, I really was healed from my addictions of when it comes to lust and marijuana use. All of that went away, and so I was incredibly grateful. And I can't say it's a journey, and I'm still having to show up sometimes where life happens, and it's not always sunshine and rainbows. But I'm starting to learn that there can be joy and sorrow at the same time. Those two can coexist, and so I'm just incredibly grateful for the road that has had to be taken, and yeah, it's been incredible so far.
When you did Exodus 90, when was this? Was this during the lockdown, or when things started to open up again?
Yeah, so when things somewhat started to open up again. So 2021 was when I did it. So it was still kind of like not completely open, and
but at least you were able to see people.
I was able to see people, and my reversion also would not have worked without adding the community, especially from St. Faustina and from Katie Young Adults. I know that it wouldn't have been easy, and I think the problem with my approach with faith, it seemed that it was always individualistic, and it's not. It's always supposed to be an endeavor with community, and I didn't really ever understand that. I always yearned for that, but I never was able to connect. And there was times where people would come up to me after Mass and be like, "Hey, we're doing this with this group," or like, "Katie Young Adults, you should come join." And I was like, "No, I'm okay," because in my mind, I'm already here, checking off the box. I'm already involved enough. I don't want to get more involved. And so, praise God that people sought me out and heard my story and accepted it and have wished me well, and as well as the guidance of Father Dad and Father David Michael. Father David Michael has played a huge role in my reversion back, and yeah, it's so incredibly important to surround yourself with people who are like-minded and wanting the best for you. I think that was a major part of the missing key was the community. And until this day, like I know I'm eternally grateful for the people who encouraged me and pushed me, because ultimately the goal, hope all going well, that I get to join the choir of angels singing and praising Him in heaven. And I know that the people who believed in me and sought me out, and not just the community, I mean my family as well, my parents, my mom and my dad, just always supporting me. My brother and sister, they've played a major role in it. So, this was not a one-man job by any means.
Who do you think about, aside from Father Dad and Father David Michael, that, were really persistent in, hey, join the Katie Young Adults, or hey, maybe you can get involved with this in the church, or is there a single person, or was it just a bunch of different people?
I can name drop a lot of people, but then if I forget someone, I'm going to get in trouble.
So there were a lot of them.
There were a lot.
And you were just hard to them? You were just, you made excuses maybe?
It was very slow because like, oh, we need you to sing somewhere. I was like, okay, well, I can do that. That's fine. I can sing. And then, okay, well, now let's talk after any kind of event. And I'm like, okay, well, this is the part where I'm going to Irish goodbye and just get on out of here, right? but people just kept reaching out and saw that there was something there. And so incredibly grateful for that. But I have to give just credit where credit is due for the people from Katy Young Adults, as well as my parents. Like really, my dad and I's relationship has just grown so much, and as well as my mom's, and their walk is just so incredibly special and really inspiring for my own. They really dive deep a little bit earlier than I did, but seeing them definitely made me curious. And I think seeing their example where I knew it was genuine, because before it didn't seem so. I think seeing how they were feeling and how they were being fulfilled, even though that they were going through hurricanes and storms, maybe planted the seed itself to like, well, maybe there's something else for your life rather than all of these worldly things that you're running to.
So we talked to your dad about his experience with the Acts retreat, and that was a major thing for him. What was it like on your end? Did you notice a big difference with him before and after?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think especially the second chance at life after the surgery, it was such a humbling experience because he had always been such a strong man. Even the night of the surgery, I had all the faith in the world, even though I wasn't praying in the way that I should have and being surrounded by prayer. My dad is Superman, like there's nothing that can bring him down. He's always taking care of us regardless of the situation. I've never seen him fail, and that was a mentality. But seeing him have to recover and my mom have to take care of him, learning to walk again, and losing all the weight that he did and having to walk around with tubes coming out of his body with blood dripping into buckets, essentially. It was just an incredibly humbling experience that I think the gift of life just had a whole new meaning for him, and it was a second chance to serve well. And so his walk and that journey that he's had has given me, all the excitement in the world that I also get a second chance. Mm-hmm. And now we can together, be the Lord's servants and workers and build his kingdom here. And like he has his gifts and I have my own, but like I've always said that we are a team. My dad, my mom, my brother, and my sister, we're very much of a team. And there's a reason why the Lord kept him here, and there's so much more work left to do. And so, yeah, it's exciting.
So you were talking earlier about how, you'd move the line and you'd compare yourself. Oh, well, at least I'm not like this person. And then, you were going deeper and deeper and the line kept moving for you. When you look back at it, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I try and get, like, show myself a little bit of mercy because I maybe I was given the information, but I just didn't take it well. And at the time, I guess I feel very different, and so I'm a bit of an emotional person. So I try to be understanding of why I was that way at the time. But and I'm honestly very grateful for it because, like I said earlier, and now the appreciation I have for what I'm able to do and that I get the opportunity to serve, and when I am on my knees and praying my rosary or in front of the Blessed Sacrament, now it gives it that much more meaning. Because maybe if I hadn't gone through all of those things, I think it would mean a lot. But now, like at times I saw, because how great is our God that he was so patient with me, where I could have easily, gotten hit by a car or something and there it goes, and just lost out an opportunity to like actually live life and not just live for short-term comforts and like enjoy the journey of betterment and dying to self. I now, like, my main focus is just to give praise and just gratitude. Is just thank you, Jesus, for the opportunity to do this right now. Like I've seen what the world has to offer, and it'll just never be enough.
I can relate to how you said, that living a double life, being up there singing and people thinking you have, this perfect life. Because my wife, my son and I, we sing for the church, and sometimes I feel like, wow, do I really belong up here singing here? Like, we are having struggles as a family. My wife and I are having struggles. I'm having struggles personally. And then, that's something that I had to deal with. I'm sure you had that as well.
Yeah, I think it was at first maybe a little bit of guilt and then just numbness, and I just didn't think about it. And then now coming out of it and like actually being here, the guilt came back. It's like, how could you have done this?
Yeah.
But even till this day, like I still at times don't feel worthy, but I'm trying to show up, and like it's never gonna be perfect, but that's the beauty of our faith and like in His mercy. So and I just like to say I'm one of those people who think that you and your family are perfect. I'm just gonna point that out there, Rudy. But boy. I think that maybe that's the perception, and hopefully today, like from sharing this, like people can see that like I'm a very normal person, and I struggle every single day, but I'm in the fight, and now thankfully, like the Lord is teaching me to want His will, and that I have certain desires in my heart, but now I want to desire His heart, to where His heart leads me to His will, and now everything has changed.
I mean, what you said is just exactly what goes through my head. Like, okay, we're not perfect up there, but we're on our own journey,
right?
And that I still struggle with that a lot, and I'm sure my wife does, and my son as well. It's just one of those things, I guess. When you serve at church, we all know that we're sinners.
Yeah,
but we just have to kind of power through and deal with that guilt.
Exactly.
Now, another thing that I can relate to you with is, so you had that situation when you were living in with somebody, and I had a situation as well. We tried to make that wrong situation right, and no matter how we tried to make it right, it wasn't going to be right because it was a wrong situation, period. Did you have that kind of struggle trying to make it right?
Oh, yeah.
But
the devil is a great negotiator, and he negotiates very well and just makes lighter of the situation where it's not that big of a deal, but it's in those small victories that he thinks he's having, right? But he's just building like brick by brick a wall until then you're numb and can't see on the other side. And that's what I felt like he was doing to me.
I was like, I'm trying to make this right. I'm trying to make this right. And then the whole thing was, the whole premise, the foundation of that was wrong, period.
Yeah, no, and at the time, I felt that it was the right thing to do. And there was a certain peace about it, which is pretty scary, the tactics that he uses, right? But I also have to admit that I just wasn't connected to the source, and it was all relying on myself. And so if we have a strategy and we're actually doing the things, whether it be praying the rosary, and if not praying the rosary, just saying thank you and having some type of dialogue with the Lord, all the things that we should be doing, then more likely than not, the right path will be present.
The funny thing that you said was how your dad was ahead of you in his, reversion.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, if you look at it, you're still a lot younger than he was at that point. So we all have our own.
Yeah.
We have our own path. It's in God's time. It happens to us whenever it's meant to happen to us.
Right. No, that is funny. Yeah. I guess I don't think about that too much. But what a gift it is that at least now it's in unison. Now we're walking and marching at the same step, and I couldn't be more grateful for that, because now our relationship is amazing. I mean, every time I'm able to sing and an adoration and they're there, the hug that I get to have with them, with my dad and my mom right afterwards, I wouldn't trade it for anything else. There's no drug in the world or nothing. Just any kind of temptation that will ever make me feel what I feel when I get to give them that hug after adoration.
And then during Mass, you talked about, looking at the consecration, the Eucharist. We have a great view of it from the side.
Yeah.
Do you appreciate it the same way that I see it? Like, this is different. This is not the way that a lot of people see it. Like,
absolutely. That one's honestly tough for me because I also like to be in the congregation, and because at times whenever you're serving, you have to make sure that the process of the mass is flowing well. And so as I'm leading, I have to know when to start and stop.
Yes.
So there isn't too many breaks or the songs aren't too long. So at times I can't completely get into the moment.
Oh, because you're busy.
Because I'm busy, right? and I'm serving. But yes, there are moments where I get to still be on my knees and just adore. And oh my goodness, being right there and that close, it's so special. And I don't know why he picked me to serve him, but I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities now.
Now, speaking of serving him and being, in the mass as in the music ministry. Now, we talked about your development as a musician from band and then singing solo. We talked to your dad about it as well. Did you notice at that point that you started to become really good? Because I talked to your dad about how the point when my son became better than me. Did you notice that point when you became better than your dad?
I just always thought that it was different styles, and I still to this day, I don't think that by any means I am like better. I really think that the gifts that he has is so special, and like he makes people feel in a different way. And so I've never compared in any way. To me, like he's someone that I look up to and admire. And the reason that I probably am able to sing is because even when I was in the womb, my dad would like put speakers next to my mom's belly and awesome. Just like kind of started putting the idea of music there. So this has just been a long time coming. And so when I get to sing, I'm not up there by myself. My dad is with me. My family's with me. Like the people that I care about the most are always with me.
I've had conversations with your dad about you as a musician and about my son as well. And we talk about...
He's so talented. And congratulations on the All-State.
Oh, thank you.
That's so awesome.
We talk about it and we're like, and when I talk to your dad about it, he's like, well, that's the goal, isn't it? For our kids to be better than us? And I'm like, that's exactly it. That's the goal.
Yeah. And I think as I'm getting older, like that is something that I'm yearning for, is to be a father at some point. But the Lord has me in a season right now where he still wants me to lean on him and get to know him more, to when that moment comes, I'll be prepared. But yeah, I can't imagine what it feels to, you enjoy singing and then seeing your son excel in the way that he does. And I'm always upset that he can't ever come sing with us at the 4:30 Mass, because that would be amazing.
He's busy as a senior now, so maybe afterwards.
Right. But yeah, I do really look forward to the day where whatever my son or daughter would like to be involved in, that I can just be their biggest cheerleader.
So looking back at your story, what would you say to somebody who's in a situation like you were in, where you've kind of gone off the deep end? Yeah. You've moved the line so many times that you can't even see where you started. What would you say to somebody?
Yeah. I would say that why not? Just why not give it a chance? And that, the first time you go for a run, or the first time you go and weightlift, that night when you look in the mirror, there's not going to be much difference. The next day you go on another run, you go and weightlift again, you're not going to see much difference again. But if you really are consistent and just continue to show up, you will see the fruit and you will see the improvement. And so to just try and strive for consistency, and then it doesn't have to be perfect, and that you can start small, because just like when you're on the deep end, it's because you took little steps to get there, right? And so I would just encourage to just show up.
Did you ever feel at that point that you were beyond saving?
Yes, because I couldn't get over the fact near the end that I was living that double life, that I was serving here and doing all of these things behind closed doors and could hide it so well. And then people would come up to me saying, you made me feel this and you made me feel that. thank you so much. And I had to look them in the eye and tell them, or keep it to myself and know that I might be looking like an apple that on the outside is red and vibrant, but on the inside is just rotting away.
So you felt like a hypocrite.
I felt very much like a hypocrite, yes.
What would you say to somebody who feels like they're beyond saving?
That the Lord is just so merciful and he's so patient and kind, and you will be so surprised at the reaction, the feeling you will get if you go to confession and, share your sins with your priest. I was for a long time adamant, like, why do I need to tell someone else my sins? I can just tell the Lord myself. Why does there need to be a middleman here? But just to face sin in the face and have the courage and humility to allow him to be your strength. For a long time, I didn't know what to do, but I started getting the idea of like, I need to put everything that is affecting me at the foot of the cross. And then now that concept has been shifting as time has gone on, because I'm very anxious and I want to go back and grab what I put at the foot of the cross. Let me take that back for a sec. I'll put it back later. I'm learning to bury it there and really keep it there, because I know when the time is right, he will resurrect it, and whatever that I need to place there is his, and my life is his. And so just to never feel that you're too far gone, and that we have a Lord who's merciful and wants us to come home.
So if there's somebody who attends the 4:30 Mass, or anyone in our parish that feels like they want to, or they need to take steps to go back, what would you recommend that they do?
You just start small. To me, the first thing that I would start with is just saying thank you, Jesus, for my life, and for even giving me the opportunity to try and walk back. I started small with maybe just 5 minutes of prayer in the morning or at night, just having moments of gratitude and having the perspective of that our life isn't our own. And so the biggest thing for me is to show gratitude. And once you start showing gratitude and seeing what's in front of you, then everything else will fall into place. Then you'll be more open to pray the rosary, or to open up your Bible and look into the gospel, to go to spend a holy hour in front of the Blessed Sacrament, going to confession. I think first and foremost, knowing that, like, to know your identity as a child of God and your identity with the Father, and that he loves you, and to just say thank you and just come home to him.
Do you think that if somebody wants to take those steps back, should they approach a group like Katy Young Adults first, or should they go to the parish priest first? What do you think? Or does it depend on the person and their situation?
Right. No, and you bring up a great point. I think also seeking community is huge. Everyone's different. Some people are a little bit more introverted. I'm very introverted. Some people are more extroverted, where at first it'll be easier to just go out and tell a bunch of people what they're feeling and find comfort there, or they just need to reach out to a priest. I would say take it to prayer first and foremost. Have that conversation with the Lord and just ask him. And if you don't receive an answer per se, then maybe go to the next step of finding someone who might appear that is maybe a little bit farther along and might direct you in the right way. To me, at this point, by no means do I think that I've arrived, but I'm always trying to seek people who are very committed and very consistent, and trying to see what they would say is better for me to do in certain situations. And so I think it's on a case-by-case basis.
I like how you said you haven't arrived, but, just based off of your story, and you're definitely on the road. You've taken huge steps, and, we thank you so much for, sharing your story. I know it might have been difficult, and I thank you for having the courage to share it. And we know that, there are people who are definitely going to benefit from you telling your story.
No, thank you, Rudy. And I mean, this platform is amazing. The work that you and Norm are doing is just gonna help move mountains, you know. And yeah, it's amazing that you both are using your gifts to share people's stories, and I'm very thankful for today.
Thanks. Just like you, we try to do the best we can.
Absolutely.